Hey guys, so it's FPS Gino here, and I'm actually making content that I've been wanting to make. What a shock. Anyways, so I am formulating my picks for the week 4 of the 2012 football pool. Obviously, game time for Baltimore. Well, for me, it's 5 minutes before game time, but for you, if you're watching this, either you're watching the game or you're seeing this later and the game's over, whatever. But I took Baltimore because Baltimore obviously is. Just look at that. They're obviously favored to win. And Baltimore. Cleveland's offense is not going to score anything. It may be lower scoring than 30-14. But Baltimore should dominate in that game. So the next game we have is Carolina at Atlanta. In this matchup, we have undefeated Atlanta versus the 1-2 Panthers. So it looks here that Atlanta is favored by 7.5, which makes sense. A lot of people are taking Atlanta to win the game. Let's look from NFL.com. But I feel Atlanta should win that game. Carolina's having trouble scoring. They couldn't get it done against the Giants. And their defense gave up way too many points. So I feel that Atlanta should win this game. So I'll take Atlanta. How about New England and Buffalo? Well, New England, they're 1-2 now, or if this page will load. Thank you. Because New England, they lost to Arizona and they lost to Baltimore. So they're very upset. Buffalo's 2-1 though. I wouldn't be surprised if that game's closer than they're saying. And that's an annoying ad. Stats so far this season. Brady has the yards, but Fitzpatrick has a lot of touchdowns. You know, it's tough to pick this game. It is a rivalry game. Patriots, they're like in a big hole they put themselves into. According to this, everyone's taking Patriots, and the line says that Patriots are favored 4.5, but half these guys are taking Buffalo. But it's like, are the Patriots going to bounce back? Because there's no way they could start the season 1-3 and still have hopes for the play. They'll have hopes for the playoffs, but it'll be extremely difficult for them to do that. And I'm not 100% sold on Buffalo. They lost week 1, but in the last 2 weeks they have won. And last week they did win rather handily. But then again, they weren't facing the toughest of opponents. So it's tough to pick that game. Just looking at it, you think New England because of the matchup. But the way New England has played and the way Buffalo has been playing, there could be a lot happening there. We'll come back to that because that's kind of a difficult thing to pick right now. San Francisco at the Jets. I think the Jets are going to win that game. The Jets are at home. They need to keep winning. They need to keep their momentum going. They had a very close deal with Miami, and that was a game that was much closer than they wanted it to be, much closer than anything, really. Everyone here is taking San Francisco. We have 2 picking the Jets. Apparently San Francisco is favored by 4.5. It's pretty close. Almost a 50-50 shot from here in the simulator, but so Jets are my team. I'm going to stick with them. I think they can beat them at home. It might be a different story if it was in San Francisco. So next is Seattle at St. Louis. Just looking at that, I'm thinking Seattle, but let's look at this a little bit more. So Seattle is favored, but it's still almost a 50-50 shot. The stats don't help either way. Obviously, Marshawn Lynch, just looking at this, has got a lot more yards than Steven Jackson, but Russell Wilson's not the greatest of quarterbacks. And Sam Bradford has established himself as something. Obviously, the Rams will probably have more passing yards, and the Seahawks will have more rushing yards. But it's a very close game, and it will be a very close game. It'll be difficult to decide who's going to win that. But I'm thinking St. Louis. That's what I'm thinking. Seahawks came off a ridiculous win last week. I'm not going to dig too deep into that, but I'm going to take St. Louis. Minnesota at Detroit. First glance, you want to think Detroit, but Detroit just got upset by the Titans last week. And Minnesota, not a very good team. Detroit needs to win this game to keep themselves in it. So, but Minnesota, they're 2-1, which is crazy considering. Let's see what the simulator has to say about this matchup. Detroit's favored by a touchdown in the simulator. Most everybody is picking Detroit to win this game. But these guys over here at CBS think Minnesota's going to win for the most part. I don't know. I don't know what to think. Obviously, I like Detroit because they're going to have the offensive attack. Minnesota is not producing points with their passing game. Obviously, Adrian Peterson's going to put up some numbers, but that's not going to be enough for them to beat Detroit. Detroit, obviously, as you saw last week, was in a high-scoring battle with Tennessee. There was, total of 80-some-odd points or whatever. So I think Detroit's going to win in this one. Then we have San Diego, Kansas City. Kansas City sucks. Somehow they beat New Orleans because New Orleans is just awful. But San Diego needs this win. They came off of that loss, that very disappointing loss to Atlanta, where they got beat up pretty bad. But San Diego is obviously the better team than Kansas City, so they should take that game. Tennessee at Houston. Although Tennessee did come off of that big win against Detroit, Detroit hasn't been the best defensive team. Houston has a strong defense and that strong offense, which just so far they've destroyed their first three teams. So I'm going to take Houston to win that game. Cincinnati at Jacksonville. Now that's an interesting game. It's hard to pick that one. Jones-Drew is always good. Obviously, Cincinnati has a better offensive passing attack, but Jaguars have a decent enough defense. But Yeah, I don't think Jacksonville is a good enough team to beat Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati is going to win by a score of like 21-17 in that game. It'll be close, but I think Cincinnati will beat them. Oakland at Denver. Oakland upset Pittsburgh, and Denver was beat by Houston. So Oakland has some momentum going into that game. Though they did lose their receiver. And Denver and Peyton Manning has been a decent work through so far. So it's really tough to beat that game, but in Mile High, I think I'll take Denver. Miami at Arizona. Now, Arizona has been a great team so far this season, mainly because of the strong defense supporting that team. And in Arizona, they're always good. And Miami, they need to get their act together. So I'm taking Arizona to go 4-0. Washington at Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa Bay is a strong team. And Washington with RG3 has become a better team. But it was a disappointing time last week for RG3 to lose to St. Louis. But in this game, it looks like it's pretty much a toss-up of a game, so most people are here taking Tampa Bay, but the AccuScore still says Washington. Most people, it's a 50-50 split there, Washington, Tampa Bay. Seems like Tampa Bay is a slight underdog in the spread. But I think Washington has explosive enough offense to not to contain. Their defense has a hard time containing other teams. So that's why the Buccaneers have a better shot against the Redskins. But the Redskins have an explosive offense that scores a lot of points. Tampa Bay is not a high-scoring team because they don't have the best offense, and they have a strong defense, so they usually have low-scoring affairs against other teams. But I think I like Washington in this matchup. So I'm going to take Washington. New Orleans at Green Bay. Flat outright Green Bay. Even though Green Bay's had some struggles, New Orleans just awful team. They're 0-3. They've been stricken by all these suspensions and such, so I just don't see New Orleans having a shot at winning that game. The Giants at Philadelphia. I'm taking the Giants. And tiebreaker points. Score that's probably going to be 20-something, so 48. There's been too many turnovers by the Eagles for them to win that game. Chicago, Dallas. That's an interesting matchup. Dallas is favored. Dallas seems to be favored by a lot. Yeah, they're favored 3.5. I don't really know about that though. I think that Chicago's going to win this. 45 points. Back to this game. New England at Buffalo. It's difficult to decide who's going to win that game. Really difficult. I think I'm going to take Buffalo just to upset New England even more. So that'll be my pick of the week right there. Well, guys,